10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff and the clock is starting. Liftoff.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Insert your Babelfish because it is time now for Kerbalcast episode 20. Don't panic.
Just that. I want to enjoy it.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin, and with us as always, our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program, the latest installment of Modder's Minute, where DK talks about RCS Build Aid.
Your letters and Kerbal news in the mission briefing.
And also your comments on But I Digress. And I guess I should say we got quite a few.
Yeah, we got a lot of response on that.
Boy, did we get quite a few.
You know, I'm just going to start going to them anytime I have a major decision. I'm like, what should I have for dinner?
What tie should I wear?
Yeah, make a hashtag campaign for it's like mac and cheese or well, it's just mac and cheese.
Yeah. Well, you know, the hive mind is always right.
Yeah.
Don't you know that?
You can't deny the hive mind.
Yeah. I had kind of a fun experience. I went to go visit my folks this past weekend.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we live a ways apart, so you know, we talk on the telephone, and you know, we tend to talk about what's going on. And I had never mentioned that we were doing this podcast. And
wait, we're now on episode 20.
I know.
And you haven't told them about it.
I didn't. I've never told my mommy. But anyway, so we were just, you know, it came up kind of in a roundabout way, and so that's when I mentioned, hey, I'm doing this podcast. And what I thought was so interesting was it shows you how quickly things are moving and how quickly things are changing. Mm-hmm. Because I had to literally define everything I was saying.
Yeah.
Podcast. What's a podcast? Well, iPod and iTunes, and you download it, and okay, and you know,
yeah, it's like a radio program, but you can choose when you listen.
And they were like, well, what's Kerbal? Well, what's a Kerbal? Well, and then I was getting questions like, well, do you guys upload the same program every week? You know, what is there to talk about week after week? And
nothing. There's nothing to talk about.
And and I'm not saying like they're stupid or anything. I'm just saying that it's just things have accelerated so fast.
Yeah.
That I was talking about things that were just so, far outside of their experience. And it was really an interesting conversation because it was 99% of it was me just defining my terms.
Yeah. And then you explain that, but it leads to 3 more questions. Yeah. And eventually,
exactly.
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, my favorite was, what could you guys possibly talk about? So I was going like, well, we start the program out and we talk about our progress in the game, and then we have a guy named, Dark Mushroom and then DK, no. and I'm talking and I'm watching eyes glaze over.
Yeah. They're like, who would want to hear about what you guys are doing in the game?
Yeah. Have you ever had I think we've all done this, where you embark on a conversation and at some point you think, I really wish I hadn't done this.
That's like every conversation I start with people. I'm like,
I'm very familiar with the glazed eyes.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny. I went out to dinner for my birthday with my family, and I was with my parents, and I mentioned the podcast, and
and that was the first time for you too.
That was the first time for me too.
We both told our parents the same time. We came out to our parents.
Well, we've been going.
Mom, Dad, I'm a podcaster.
We've been dabbling in it long enough. We're ready to really go steady with it. So we're introducing it to our parents.
God help us if someone just comes into the podcast at that point.
Yeah.
What are they talking about?
I explained it to my parents. They're like, so it's a video game. Like, yeah. It's like, well, you own a lot of video games. Why are you just doing it over that one? And I'm like, well, there's a lot to it. And they're like, and people only want to hear about one game because they're used to, well, whenever I was living with them, like Game Informers coming to the house, it covers a lot of games and stuff. But it's like, no, we talk about one game for, over 20 hours now. So
well, that's, and that's another thing that you have to explain about podcasts, which is, that was another thing I was trying to explain. I was saying, okay, well, like, for example, there's this game called Minecraft. Well, if you go on iTunes and look for Minecraft podcasts, you're going to find, 100 of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, there was no Kerbal Podcast, which is what made me want to do this.
Yeah.
And, I'm still getting that kind of, like how your dog tilts his head because he doesn't know what you're talking about. They were still looking at me like,
It's like, well, I just, I heard this voice. And it said,
I don't understand.
if you record it, some might listen.
Oh, and then the ultimate capper, my dad was like, and you get paid for this, right? No.
Then why are you doing it?
Why are you doing it? The chicks, man.
Oh yeah,
we get chicks like crazy.
Probably.
Maybe.
You guys don't know.
Potentially.
So
someday.
Yeah. Okay, onto our progress report.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's talk about progress. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay. Did you cram?
Yeah, I had to cram.
I know, because you're doing your 6-day work weeks.
Yeah,
still.
Well, I got my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Like, okay, here's your schedule, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Ooh.
2 more weeks of this thing. Yeah,
nice.
It's awful, but it's funny. One of my coworkers listens to this, so he's like, yeah, I know. So
I feel your pain.
Yeah. I would say we meet on Tuesdays, but we're at work. So
yeah.
My progress in the game, I had that ship that I was like, when we last left off, it was gonna circle around
in
the
our
mun,
last episode,
and it was gonna circle around the mun and then slingshot toward Minmus because I just assumed that may work.
Oh, we got a letter about that, by the way.
Oh,
well, I mean, we'll get to
yeah,
it.
and we actually we got a tweet from Dark Mushroom about like, hey, this may help,
Yeah.
And of course, I disregarded that. No,
it was too helpful.
I regarded it, but I didn't know what to do with it. Somewhat. We'll get to that.
You regarded and then disregarded.
Yeah, but I disregard. So I started to slingshot
Which
around.
puts you in
like,
disrepute.
I was time warping up, and then I was like, okay, now let's see what kind of curve I had around this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was just passing by, and I happened to get a mun encounter.
Okay.
And I wanted to see what my mun encounter looked like.
You do this every time. Have you noticed that?
What?
Yeah, you're looking at me like, what are you talking
What?
about? Whenever you tell me these stories, like, well, I'm going to Minmus or I was doing whatever, it's like inevitably at some point you'll go, and then I accidentally got like this encounter, like, things that I, when I was starting out, was desperately trying to do and failing. And then it's like you just
I get encounters, I just don't appreciate or utilize them. So
yeah,
well,
it's like you're just wandering around, encountering.
Yeah, it was like, oh, hey, look at that.
I'm waiting for the day when you announce, and then I got an even counter, and
it's like,
you bastard.
And then I went and picked up those Kerbals he stranded there, and it's no big deal. So my encounter went directly into the mun. Dead shot center.
Really? Okay.
Like I was not aiming for it. I was just flying through, and it's like, oh no, you're going to get pulled directly into it. And I was like, well, and then I really looked at the fuel.
You could slow down and make a really neat landing.
I looked at the fuel I had, and I was like, I'm not going to make it to Minmus. I'm going to make a really awesome landing, and that was kind of hard
on the mun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. I was thinking about it. Which one would be more difficult? Okay, so let's say the mun, is going and like doing its rotation around Kerbin.
Okay.
I'm
trying to remember. That's clockwise, I think.
Counterclockwise.
It's counterclockwise. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mun is clockwise. So whenever you like look in the orbit view and scroll till it stops, so it's going counterclockwise. If you're going to land on it, and you're in its sphere of influence, like you're being pulled into it, is it better to do it as you're in front of it in its rotation or behind it, or does it matter?
Ooh, that's a good question. I bet it would matter.
If you're in front of it, you're both traveling at the same speed.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, I'm trying to think. What you're asking me is should you go with the rotation or against it?
Yeah, so it's
that what you're saying?
Like you have the mun moving.
Yeah.
And is it better to land like you're running into each other, or is it to land like you're catching up to it? The hand motions you're making are amazing.
Well, I'm trying to visualize it. I may be completely wrong, and somebody please correct me if I am. I would suspect that if you're coming up behind it, wouldn't you be losing speed?
Oh, I think so. And this is ridiculous because we're both probably way wrong on this. But I imagine it's like if you wanted to catch a car.
Boy, we are cowed, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we both just.
Well,
it's like we could be completely right, and we just mean.
Yeah.
I know we're completely wrong.
Well, I think it's also, we always talk about, well, there wasn't a Kerbal podcast, so we made one before somebody who knows what they're talking about does, And now we're 20 episodes in, and anyone who knows what they're going to talk about, too late,
Well, so, and the thing is if somebody writes in and says, you guys are absolutely right, our attitude is going to be, well, this time.
Yeah.
We'll be wrong next time.
You're going to Eeyore it.
Yeah.
So,
it would be Marvin the Depressed Robot.
Yeah. I imagine it like trying to catch a car. Mm-hmm. Or basically trying to make contact with a car. Right. Would it be better to, let's say the car is moving at 10 miles an hour, to be in front of the car running 15 miles an hour and slow down until you make contact with it? Or would it be better to be behind the car going 15 miles an hour to catch up to it?
Well, I know that if you approach a planet or a moon with its and you're going in the direction of its spin, you pick up momentum. Mm-hmm. If you go against the momentum of the spin, it borrows momentum from you.
Kind of like drafting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought about that and I was like, well, it'd be
probably got that wrong.
It'd be easier to slow down and have it catch up to you.
Right.
But at the same part, you're accelerating toward it and it's accelerating toward you, which is its own set of problems. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it. And
you know what? I'm throwing this out to the listenership. I want an answer.
So I tried to land on there, and I eventually got to where I could, and I landed, and it turns out I had a contract going for collecting science, bringing science back from the surface, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, I had a reason for going there. Well, I finished that. I collect the contract. I don't have enough fuel to get off the thing. Mm-hmm. I had enough fuel to secure an orbit around the Mun.
Okay.
So my lander's just kind of like circling around the Mun right now.
See, now would be a good time to know how to rendezvous.
Yes, it would. It doesn't have docking ports, though.
No, it doesn't. If you can get close enough, you can float your Kerbal between ships.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of refueling, but yeah, there is the chance to just have them do a ship transfer.
Yeah, you can do a ship-to-ship transfer.
So I built another, another ship because there was a new one for putting a flag on the Mun.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I can't deorbit the one that was there because I don't have enough fuel to do that. So I was like, I just made a new lander. I take the thing off and I get it there, and I was like, I want to be able to bring this thing home because I have collected all the science from doing my EVAs and anything that would transmit at 100% I've done.
Right.
Anything else like Mystery Goo or Science Junior, I have not been able to bring home. So I had that one time where I went to the Mun and made it back, but that ship was atrociously large. And
right now you're basically in orbit around the Mun. You're off the surface.
Yeah, that guy's toast. He's pretty much floating around there. He can't do anything. I made a new lander, landed it, but it didn't have enough fuel to make it out either. So I'm in this really weird spot where I'm going to have to, my landers themselves, after spending so much fuel to slow down and keep a stable, steady descent toward the body.
Right.
I've run into a problem to where I'll burn fuel doing that, and I think I'm burning as little as possible, but I only have barely enough to get off the Mun again.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sorry to everyone. A lot of people sent me help on Minmus, and I was like, I realized that making it to Minmus would make a good story for the podcast. I'll be like, oh, yeah, I made it to Minmus. But I really need to learn how to do this whole thing with the Mun. And I heard Minmus is easier in some regards because it has easier gravity. But I want to...
When you say this thing, you mean landing?
Landing on the Mun and being able to come back from it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
So I haven't been able to do it. Like the first time I did it, landed, took off, managed to, made the right couple moves and managed to get home. Mm-hmm. But with this, I don't have the extreme amount of funds to do that.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to build something just huge. And I started building it, and it really wasn't that big. It was just really high thrust, really high fuel, and to use as little as possible whenever it came to getting to there, so I could have as much fuel as possible for takeoff. And I couldn't afford it. And I was
okay.
That was one of the first times without me just, making big stupid things like, oh, I'm going to make a massive rollie. And it's like, you can't afford it. And I was like, that's probably good. That's probably good. I can't afford that.
You can't handle the rollie.
Yeah. So whenever I was trying to do this, I was like, you can't afford it. And then I realized if I tried to make any ship relatively close to the ones I've made, which have been sort of fuel efficient, I couldn't afford those either because I haven't been reverting these. I've just been like, launching them. And if they didn't work out, I was basically playing like I did in science mode. Oh, that didn't work out. Okay, build another one. So I'm currently kind of broke.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and I'm having to do all of these contracts that'll get me a lot of money. And I realized the tracks that are landed at or splashed down at or those are easier. And so I like doing those because I was like, I don't really want to do the contracts right now. I just want to make the money. But ones where I have to be at a certain speed, at a certain altitude and stuff like that, in the amount of time I have to play right now, I really don't want to spend it doing those.
Right.
So I'm trying to get contracts that'll get a pretty decent profit for, not a whole lot. And I'm really being careful about making sure things land so I can recover them and get the money back.
At some point, I would really like to sit down and work with you on learning how to do rendezvous.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, it's not a magic cure-all, but some of the problems that you're having would be negated by being able to do rendezvous.
They would,
because,
for sure.
There is an economy in having a ship that gets you there and brings you home, and having a ship that lands and comes back. Instead of what you're doing basically is you're trying to create a ship that has enough fuel to get you from the surface of Kerbin to the surface of the Mun, and then back to the surface of the Kerbin.
Yeah, and I'm
the
going
Kerbin. Listen to me.
The Kerbin.
Kerbin.
I'm gonna need I'm gonna need it to be able to refuel it because what I noticed is what ended up happening is I had my first stage, which was a whole bunch of boosters, and that would get me past the 10,000 foot area, or 10,000 meter area, and then whenever I was around 15, I would detach all the boosters and I would go to 3 thrusters.
Yeah.
And I would take those most of the way. And then my last little bit, like whenever I had a secure orbiter on Kerbin, my last little bit adjusting to get an orbiter on the Mun, those were my final set of fuel and thrusters to... Cody C's probably... I'm sorry, man. We need to look up that email so I can get these things right. Yeah, he's not like, I pulled over because I was laughing so hard. He's like,
Cody, stop driving.
I drove off a bridge because I couldn't take it anymore. Sorry, Cody. So,
Cody's going to write in one of these times, and then I ran into a telephone pole.
Yeah,
you guys are hilarious.
So, yeah, but I've been on.
Pardon the typos. I'm in traction at the hospital.
I'm on that last set of thrusters that are meant for me to use just for landing, but I use about, I would say, a fifth of the fuel, getting a secure and set descent onto the Mun, and then I use 2 more fifths of that, trying to secure like a good safe landing,
right? And
then those, that final 40% isn't enough to get me home. It's enough to get me in orbit, but it's not enough to get me home.
This is kind of an aside, but you have never seen the From the Earth to the Moon, the HBO series.
No,
and
but I think I see it right here.
Yeah, I loaned you a copy of it so you can take it home. I will be curious, based on the conversation we just had. I believe it's episode number 5. It's called Spider, and it's where they talk about the development of the lunar lander, the LEM. A lot of when they were going in and talking about developing it, early on, the initial idea was that they were going to land this gigantic rocket. They were going to lift off from the Earth, land that thing on the Moon, and then bring it all the way back. And at some point, one of the engineers goes, guys, this is all about weight. We don't need to take that thing to the surface. All we need is a little tiny craft.
Yeah.
And, at the time, this was before they had done Rendezvous. And at the time, they were going, we don't know if we can rendezvous in Earth orbit. Now you're talking about doing it in lunar orbit. But I'm curious, given what you're talking about, when you watch that episode, I'm wondering if I could, it's like a cartoon. I could see like the proverbial light bulb just blink right over your head.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I'm trying to find something that'll get
aside done.
Yeah. That'll transport me there. And I need to start working on Rendezvous. I'm going to do how you said. I think it was the last episode where you send up. No, I think it was an episode before that. You send up the
right.
Yeah, can start constructing a giant fuel monstrosity in orbit. So
we got a tweet. Somebody tweeted out a picture. I would have to look. But somebody had done that. They tweeted out a picture of a tanker that they had
the one that
refueled.
they built. Yeah. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
We'll look it up later and be like, oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, you missed your shout out. So.
Well, it's like I said, if you're looking for a good way to learn Rendezvous, that's a very effective way of doing
a little
it.
end result too. You're like, hey.
Yeah, because you're not just wasting time. You're actually accomplishing
I need
something.
to see if I have docking ports unlocked. Now, the nice thing about contract mode is it's really easy to get science. Mm-hmm. So if you spend all your time, if you have to go replenish funds like I was, you spend all of your time doing that, but you get science along the way.
Right.
So it's like I'm missing out on the ability to keep launching stupid rockets at the Mun and keep crashing them in there until eventually I find one that makes it back and gives me all the science that I was wanting. Or I don't have the ability to do that because of the money, but while I'm earning that money, I'm also earning science to eventually get it right.
Right.
So,
well, that's kind of why I because that I spend a lot of time in the game kind of experimenting and playing around.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in science mode.
Yeah, or sandbox.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of sandbox now because you're doing the prop monitor.
Yeah. Oh, it was Alex M. He says, here's the result of Biff's docking practice and much patience. And he tweeted out a picture, and it is boy, that thing is massive. It is a massive tanker that looks like four of the orange tanks.
Yeah,
and they're parallel. There's two side by side, and then he's got like a tanker that is that's docked to the side of it. But and it's covered with docking ports. So he has literally created a refueling station.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
It's funny. Whenever I was having to build new rockets, I was thinking about whenever I first started, like, what does a rocket need? A command pod because I have to,
right?
Fuel and something to either a booster or a thruster, something to take it up, and then a parachute.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, well, what do you need for a rocket? Well, I need a command pod, and I need some landing gear and a parachute,
and
some RCS,
mystery goo,
some fuel for the RCS, some mystery goo,
yeah.
Throw a Science Junior on there. What else do I throw a thermometer? And it ends up being this cluster of parts. And then you start building the rocket that, is not too much different from most of the rockets you build. You're like, I got to remember. It's like, and then you get all the way up there and you're like, no transmitting device. I should have put an antenna on there. I think one of the things about Kerbal is, when you start the game, there's an extremely steep learning curve because you just have to figure out how things work. Yeah.
That learning curve doesn't, it stops being steep after a while, but it is from that point on.
It's a memory curve.
Well, but you still have a learning curve even after, once you get past the initial, okay, how does everything work? Then you've got this very slow, gradual learning curve because then it becomes like what you said. You're no longer building simple rockets anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be, it was, I need something to get me off the ground and then get me back on the ground, preferably still alive. Now it's, okay, I know how to get off the ground. I know how to get back on the ground. Yeah. Now I need to know how to, now I need to figure out how to do something while I'm actually up there. And, you just keep building progressively more and more complex rockets.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the learning curve is, it's long and it's, it's steep at first, and then it's long and gradual afterwards.
And then there's a huge drop-off.
And then there's a huge drop-off.
Because you forgot your parachute.
That's when you get married and your wife pulls the plug on it. Enough of that.
Yeah. So what's it about? It's a game, and I'm trying to... Whatever. Yeah, just unplug it.
Yeah.
It's easier this way.
Well, that was the conversation that I was having with my folks. Was I was trying to explain Kerbal.
Yeah.
And, and I was like, and I finally devolved down to where it's like the Apollo program. It's the Apollo program.
Yeah.
They're going.
It's like, but can't you just go back to playing Shoot Man 64 on your Nintendo?
Didn't that already happen?
Yeah.
It's like no. It's a game. It's a game. Although I did think it was kind of cute. The next morning, I came down for breakfast and we were getting packed up and we were about to leave. And just as we were about to leave, my mom was, now what are those little things called?
I know what
Kerbal's mom.
I know what
Kerbal's.
somebody's getting for Christmas. You're getting some Kerbal socks knitted for you.
I want a sweater. I want like a really obnoxious sweater with a giant Kerbal on it.
Yeah, just a bunch of little Kerbals.
Yeah, just a lot of Kerbals.
And all these little patterns.
Well, as I said, I didn't get to Kerbal this past week as much as I would normally.
Yeah.
But I do have some progress to report. I've been trying to do cabin view, trying to do everything from cabin view.
Got cabin fever.
Yeah, I think that experiment's about run its course. And here's why.
Okay.
I told you that trying to fly from cabin view is like starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a complete novice again.
Uh-huh.
And I had to relearn how to get into orbit. And I mean, literally everything that I'm used to doing, I had to relearn. I had to relearn how to do it from an internal cabin view, not relying on the external view. This is where the more I do this, the more the limitations of the cabin view become obvious. I thought I'm going to go to the Mun and I'm going to land because, the Mun is familiar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Kerbal mac and cheese.
Yeah.
It's comfort food.
No, I've been there.
Yeah.
At varying speeds.
Yeah.
But I've been there.
Well, I just, I thought, okay, I've gotten comfortable with doing rendezvous and getting into orbit around Kerbin and doing all of these things from cabin view. I've gotten comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Now I need to start working on landing again. The Mun is comfortable. I'm going to go to the Mun and I'm going to land. Well, I ran into the same problem that I had that I was talking about last week was every time I would touch down, the ship would flip over. My lander would flip over or it would fall on its side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, and I kept landing and it would fall over and I'd land and it would fall over. And it was like I was doing everything exactly right. And I was going, why is this thing falling over every single time? So I finally went to an external view. And this is where I discovered the limitation.
You only put one landing leg on.
No, I was coming down on a slope.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't tell from cabin view.
Yeah.
The
it doesn't
cameras,
have like a topographical or anything?
not that if it does, I have not found it. But yeah, I was coming down on a slope. It never occurred to me that, I thought I was coming down on a flat area. But it turns out that it was like a big crater valley. And I was trying to land on the side of it. And what happened was, I was coming straight down.
Yeah.
But, basically 2 landing pads would touch and then the whole thing would topple.
Most of the landings that I've had, and I've had a good portion of like small landers land on the Mun. A majority of them have fallen over, and it was because of that. I would be getting close.
'Cause you're on a slope.
And this is me doing external view, and
Right.
I'd see it, and it'd fall, and be like, oh, hell no. And and it would boink, and then just like fall over. And once it's fallen over, there's nothing you can do about it.
Although at one point, as I was sliding down the hill, I was thinking to myself, well, I made my first rolling.
Yeah, hold Q. Just get this thing going.
Just start rolling. Yeah, but that's I've come to the conclusion, and of course I may amend this in later episodes, but there's certain things that you just can't seem to do in cabin view only.
Yeah.
So what I think I'll end up doing ultimately, I think I will integrate cabin view into my gameplay, but I don't think it'll be cabin view only.
So, like, when you're landing, you'll switch to normal view?
I'll go to
but
external
if you're
view.
Like, if you're just flying around, cabin view makes it more interesting.
Right.
So,
Well, it can.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love the visual of being able to be in the external mode.
Mm-hmm.
I love the visuals of going past planets and things like that. I do know that the next time I do rendezvous, for example, next time I try and do docking, I will probably do external up to a point and then switch to internal.
Yeah.
Because being able to see from my docking point of view, or that docking port point of view, being able to see from there makes rendezvous and docking a lot easier. So again, I'll probably, now that I've tried to, go full blown cabin view and I'm discovering some limitations, I will probably just integrate that into my play style where I'm in cabin view sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably just be switching back and forth.
I think it's the best way to do it because it's like, it's kind of like how we're talking, like, when should I stop trying to make it a simulation, like a true simulation? It's like whenever it's no longer fun. Right. So if you're doing something like, it's like, just do it whenever it's fun for you. But whenever it's like, oh, this is just, rage-inducing, okay, I'll maybe tone it down a bit.
You said that in the last episode because I had asked you, I said, at what point does striving for complete realism, at what point does that become a fool's errand? And you said to me, the point at which you're not having fun. And when I was sliding down the side of a crater on the Mun
for the however many time.
For the 10th time, it was kind of like at that point it was like I'm not having any fun anymore.
Yeah, I'm just frustrated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when I switched to the external view and I was able to correct and bring it down on a flat surface, it was the fun of what I was doing came back immediately. Yeah. So that's the point where I went, okay, this experiment I think is reaching the limits.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was not much progress to talk about this week, other than just to say that the experiment I think has run its course.
Yeah, you've fully realized the extent to which you will roster prop monitor.
Now, the funny part is somebody will probably write in at this point and go, hey, dummy, there's a 3D, landing modeler screen that you're not calling up. Imager, or something like that.
Or, get the mod auto cartographer or something. Yeah. Actually, you'd think that, I think roster prop monitor and ScanSat would work well together because if you sent a probe to go scan the surface of something, it could give you, like they have like Moonlander, the old Moonlander game where you see like a 2D view. Yeah. Like you would see a 2D view of what it looks like, and you just rotate that to see, what the side view looks like. Yeah,
I would like. Do you remember in the original Alien movie? Do you remember they had a computer, a wire display of the landing? Mm-hmm. The computer of the planet surface. Mm-hmm. It'd be kind of cool if that was. If you could call something like that up from cabin view.
We're going to call this segment Mod Request.
Yeah.
Hey,
hey, modders.
You should make these mods work. You should make a mod that replaces any RCS thrust with fart noises. So. Yeah. So come on.
Oh, that would... honestly, I think I would pull the plug on that one.
That would be my first mod.
Yeah, I bet it would.
If somebody makes... you got to make it good, though. If it's just one sound, but you got to,
That's bad. Tell you what, on that note, let's move on. Okay?
All right.
Okay. Dark Mushroom was not able to provide us with Dark Matters this week, but he will be back next week, and as always, we do appreciate his contributions. So let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, it's now time for the mission briefing. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. First letter. This is from Liquid. It says, hey, Kerbalcast, Liquid here. You guys were talking about whether or not you wanted to continue the But I Digress segment, and I wanted to weigh in. I haven't had too much problem with the segment, though I have skipped a good few because they were about films I haven't seen and would like to, for example, Gravity. My personal favorite But I Digress segment was the one where you discussed the real-life events of Apollo 15. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah. Actually,
it was fun to put together, too.
Yeah, when talking about history stuff, there's not really spoilers because, it happened. So.
Well, what I enjoyed was when I was putting it together, I was using actual audio from the mission.
Yeah.
and I was interspersing it with what we were talking about. And it was fun to just work my way through the audio itself and go through the transcript at the same time and find bits and pieces that would work. And so it was, for me, it was like I was learning about it at the same time we were putting the segment together. I wouldn't mind if But I Digress shifted from films and moved on to purely discussing space missions. As even if someone is unfamiliar with a particular mission, they can enjoy the discussion by learning more about space history and get a perspective about how far we've come technologically. That's not a bad idea. I know that usually before we do an episode, I always kind of check the space history calendar to see if something's coming up that we can talk about.
Date or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, in December, we're talking about Apollo 8.
Yeah.
Because I've said this before. I think it is a shame that more people don't know about Apollo 8 and more people don't appreciate Apollo 8, because to me, it was one of the most significant, if not the most significant, of the Apollos.
Yeah.
Wrapping up Liquid's letter, that's my 2 cents. Keep up the good podcasting and, ready for the sign-off?
Go for it.
May gravity slingshot you to your final destination.
Oh, what?
That's on it. That's like the Kerbal funeral home.
Yeah. Final destinations.
your final destination. Well, it's like when you're on an airplane and they talk about, we're making our final approach. Really?
I thought I'd have way more left.
What was the George Carlin joke? This is a nonstop flight. No, I want my flight to stop. What do you have?
From Tony D. Hi, guys. Still loving your podcast. For what it's worth, I like the digress section, so chalk me up in the pro column. Oh, you're always worth something to us. A lot of the conversation has been about how Minmus orbit is in a different plane and how, because of that, there are only 2 points in the orbit where you are in the same place.
This is you remember earlier I said, this is the letter I was talking about.
Those 2 points are the ascending and descending nodes. The purpose of these is not to try to get encounters at these points. These are the points in your orbit where you should be adjusting your inclination to get into the same plane as your target. A typical Minmus mission would go like this. 1. Launch into orbit. 2. Circularize orbit. 3. Select Minmus as target. 4. At ascending or descending node, burn normal or anti-normal to adjust your inclination to match Minmus after you have matched inclination. Okay, so Dark Mushroom said this in his tweet also.
Yeah, he also said normal and anti-normal.
Okay, so I thought that was pro and retrograde, but it's not. What is it?
Yeah, and before I sound like I know what I'm talking about, I had to look this up when I saw him say normal and anti-normal to make sure that I knew what I was actually saying. When you create a maneuver node, you know how you have different symbols on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Green circle is prograde. Green circle with an X is retrograde.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The pink triangle that points straight up is normal. The anti-pink triangle, which points straight down, is anti-normal. That changes your inclination. Okay.
Yeah, see, the game never showed me those terms,
Yeah.
so I considered the triangle rotate,
Right.
Because it was like on the way that I was viewing, the perspective that
Yeah.
I kept viewing, it was rotating it. So
Right.
that makes sense.
And to finish the last 2 symbols on there, there's a blue circle and a blue circle with a dot in it. That's radial in and radial out.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so if you ever hear those terms, that's what they mean.
5. Create maneuver node to intercept Minmus, just like you would for the Mun, since now you're in the same plane as Minmus, etc. Obviously, another more efficient way to do this is to launch your vessel directly into orbit at the same inclination as Minmus. It's a little bit harder to do that, but it does save fuel in the long run. We typically launch east to take advantage of Kerbin's rotation, but to launch into Minmus' plane, you would only have to deviate very slightly from that due east rotation. If you're a MechJeb user, you can select Minimus as the target before launching and tell MechJeb to launch into plane of target to see how to accomplish this. Keep up the good work.
MechJeb is a good learning tool, especially for a novice. Put it on your ship, tell it to perform the maneuver for you, and then watch what it does, and then try and do it yourself. It's kind of a silent tutor. Anyway, moving on. Okay, this letter comes from Top Boom. Hi, Biff and Nos. I've been listening to your podcast for a few months now, and am really enjoying it. I think you two do a great job. Well, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for your dedication, hard work, and expense that you put forth for the Kerbal community. That's 2 Ks, Kerbal community.
as long as there's not a third word, we're okay.
Yeah, that's true. It's like Crazy Cat. Kerbal community, the effort that you put forth to make this show happen. And thanks so much for being so receptive to listener feedback. It really shows that you want to make the show the best it can possibly be. Yeah, that's why we listen to the criticism and the praise.
Yeah.
Yeah. My opinion on But I Digress. I think most of our letters are about that.
Yeah, it's
or at least have some comment.
it's in there somewhere for a lot of them.
I think that But I Digress should still have a place on the podcast, but limited to no more than 15 minutes. I'm not the biggest movie fan, but I like hearing about things that aren't necessarily Kerbal, but are space-related. So maybe But I Digress could be about real-life space things that NASA is doing or anything aerospace-related. And I'm assuming he would also agree with the previous letter that talked about making it about space history. Mm-hmm. However, I really listen to the podcast to hear about our beloved KSP, where Biff has stranded Kerbonauts, which I do quite a bit, and, of course, stories of what Nos has rolling out of the VAB. I also think it would be neat if you had guests on the show to talk about a story, when this happened, and yet I still made it home. Or maybe an extended Q&A session with Dark Mushroom or DK about the tutorial or mod that they present. That's a good idea right there.
Yeah.
We definitely would like to get Dark Mushroom and DK on here for an expanded interview. Another thing I would say, any listener out there, if you've got a good story and you don't mind doing an interview over Skype with us, we'd love to talk.
Yeah, we can set up a time.
We could geek out together.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, if you are willing to do that, please send us an email, kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. If you've got a neat story, we'd sure love to talk to you about it. Okay, wrapping up the letter from Top Boom. Finally, I need to get this off my chest. I was one of those people... This is for me. In the last, 2 podcasts ago, I was talking about how to bring up the nav ball in the map screen.
Yeah.
And it's the delete key on the number pad. And for some reason, I said the insert key. And I didn't catch it until the podcast had already gone out. So, in last episode, I said, hey guys, I goofed that up. It's the delete key, not the insert key. And then I jokingly said, I bet somebody spent all week hitting the insert key. Dear Biff, I was one of those people hitting the insert key all last week. Ha ha, thanks a lot. Again, thanks for all you do. And that's from Top Boom, and thank you for your letter.
From Pun Pundit.
Pun Pundit.
I suggest you keep But I Digress, but move the Shea Challenge ahead of it, so that people who do not like But I Digress, or don't want to listen to it because they don't want spoilers, don't have to play seek-bar darts to get to the Shea Challenge.
Yeah. Well, I listen to the podcast on my iPhone. I patch it into my car stereo.
Yeah.
I've got one of those, plugs, plug it directly in. And yeah, my big old thumb and that little progress bar, if I ever try and move, it's like I'll just tap it and like 30 minutes go by. And
like, welcome to Kerbalcast. Then you're like, oh, well, I need to move ahead a minute. Happy Kerbal. Oh, okay, I need to move back a minute. Welcome to Kerbalcast.
So, anyway.
Yeah, I do it in browser, straight from Libsyn. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that thing's real jumpy.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes you move a minute, sometimes you move like 5 or 10.
My phone has got, you can advance it 15 seconds. And I've actually gotten to where if there's something I want to skip, it's like 15, it's like...
And then you're like just kind of like adding it together. Yeah. Like, you said it's 15 minutes. Yeah. So I need to hit the 15 key.
Well, the funny the funny thing is sometimes what I'm trying to skip, it takes longer to keep hitting the button
than it would to just listen to it.
Just listen to it.
Oh, need to go back. Okay, I've spent 15 minutes trying to...
it's, how people, like with TiVo and stuff, they fast forward through commercials. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you overshoot.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like the commercial break was 2 minutes long and it takes you 5 minutes to
At that point, I'd
Get back
rather
to-
watch commercials because I have hung out with people and they would TiVo and they're like, and they would hit as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And they're like, skip all the commercials. And then they would go too far and
Yeah.
they'd have to rewind, but you've already seen like the big scene.
Yeah,
You're
right,
like,
right.
wait, is that? Oh. It's like,
Yeah.
so you'd already see like the big reveal,
Yeah.
even though,
you
know,
see, fast forward, the butler jumps out the window and the cops arrest him.
yeah, and you're like,
go,
well, yeah.
Dadgummit, the butler did do
No,
it.
you might as well just keep fast forwarding then.
Okay, is it you or me?
I think it's me.
Okay.
From Alex in Tokyo.
Hello, Alex.
Hi guys, thanks for reading out my tweet in the last episode. Just thought I'd drop you a line about your But I Digress segment. As I said in my tweet, I'd prefer you keep the segment in. It's already provided me with a good new movie, Europa Report, which I wouldn't have watched without your recommendation, and it also reminded me about Galaxy Quest. Never give up,
Never give up, never surrender. Oh, that's not right.
One thing you did mention was, should we only do it if we have something to talk about? I think the answer here is yes. If you're struggling to find a topic just because it has to be in the show, then you're probably doing it wrong. Especially given Nas's schedule, which sounds like fun. Not. You're correct. It's not fun.
Not.
I wouldn't be upset to hear, well, no, but I digress this week because we didn't have anything interesting to talk about. I also agree with DK on Twitter. Keep it at least vaguely relevant to your audience. Space, science fiction, games, tech, and the like are great. I'd probably be a bit nonplussed if you did one on, say, knitting or pet care.
See, I was going to do fashion tips.
Quilter cast.
You know, honestly, that's one of those jokes that would be a lot funnier if they could see me. Sitting here in my ratty Star Trek T-shirt.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of the topic, here's a request.
I'm actually glad they can't see me.
Would you think of doing one of Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy? I don't think this awesome work gets enough airtime.
I want to. Those books. How I think everybody that loves to read has a giant stack of books that are kind of queued up.
Yeah.
I have all three of those sitting there waiting.
Well, you got to get on it.
Yeah. I will say, Alex, stay tuned. Later in the program, I have something to tell you about the Mars trilogy.
He's gonna spoil the fourth one.
Yeah,
you didn't even know there's a fourth one.
Yeah.
He's gonna spoil it. Anyway, there's my .02 funds. Looking forward to many more great episodes to come. May you always have fuel, power, and snacks.
Was that another way of saying that's my 2 cents?
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
Hey, I could use that .02 funds. I'm broke.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, write in a lot, Alex. He needs the funding. Okay, from North Star. Greetings to the Kerbalcast team. I wanted to, first of all, chime in on But I Digress. I think it usually detracts from the rest of the program and should only be saved for special occasions where you have something you find especially interesting to talk about. Please count that as a con vote in your tally, because we're doing pros and cons.
Yeah.
As regarding the latest episode itself, I know you get a lot of letters, but I was curious if I could convince you to touch on a couple of parts of my previous letter that you've left out. I've got a couple of questions coming up, and you have to answer them.
Okay.
Specifically, my questions as to your views on the introduction of more spaceplane parts in .25, and whether you think it will lead you to using spaceplanes more often. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Let's discuss that question first of all.
Okay.
More spaceplane parts in .25, is that going to make you do more with spaceplanes? Go.
When they initially show up, I'm going to play with them in Sandbox some. Unless they introduce spaceplane only contracts, I'm not going to do them in contract mode because most of the contracts are about testing parts and getting to a certain height and being at a certain speed. And I know how I could do that with a rocket. I'm not sure I could do it with a spaceplane. And also, most of the missions are reaching farther and farther out, like land on the Mun, go, circle Minmus, do all those. And I am not at the ability to do that in a spaceplane yet. So unlocking parts for rockets has more of a return for me than spaceplane parts. So I won't do it because I won't do it too much because it'll start costing me money, and that's money that I need to get rockets to fulfill contracts to earn more money. So I'll mess with them in Sandbox unless they make new contracts just for spaceplanes, and then I'll totally be making spaceplanes.
Okay.
Yours?
Okay, my answer will be an exercise in brevity. if it is fun.
If it is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, the reason I don't do much with space planes right now is it's frustrating.
Yeah, and rockets are the main draw to the game
Yeah.
for you. So like
Yeah.
that, like whenever you're like, oh, I get to build rockets. you
Yeah,
know?
woohoo!
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's my answer. If it's fun.
Yeah, if somebody pitched it to you as an aeronautics simulation, you'd be like, oh, okay, let me try it out. But if they said it's a rocketry simulator, you'd be
Right.
like, I'm on it. So
Interesting you should put it that way, because the next question, do you think aerodynamics should be the next major focus for the dev team? I suggest inviting your listeners to try a simple experiment. Drop a small full and a large empty fuel tank and watch them fall at the same rate. My brief answer, again, if it's fun.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot between gameplay and simulation. If this goes too far into simulation and the steep learning curve gets steeper.
yeah, it's like in the Call of Duty games. You know, your guy gets shot a couple times and
Right.
his eyes get real red,
Right.
and then it fades and you're okay again. You
Right.
know, it's like no, you get shot once and you're on the ground and you're waiting for the medic and you're bleeding out and stuff and it's awful. You know, well that's a true simulation of what
Right.
it's like to get shot.
Well, did you ever play, and I'm talking about the first one, Operation Flashpoint?
No.
Operation Flashpoint, and I'm talking again, not the recent ones, way back. They made it to be like a counterpoint to Call of Duty, and it was meant to be an absolutely realistic first-person shooter simulation. And you know, I would play that game and I would hoof it, you know, for an hour to get into position, and then bam, a sniper would take me out and I would never see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, literally one bullet took me out.
It's infuriating.
Exactly. And, you know, and right about then is when I went, you know, Medal of Honor sure is a fun game.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever it comes to them, and actually, it was one of our early episodes. We talked about some flaws that KSP had, and one of them was that nose cones don't actually do anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's because they were talking about every part adds drag.
Yeah, every
whether
part
it's-
adds drag and weight.
Yeah.
But nose cones don't reduce any drag because they make the air, contour off of things. So I've never used a nose cone since, and I've had no reason.
Me either.
I had no reason to ever use one. My ships look nicer when I use them.
Yeah.
But by no means does it benefit me at all, so I stopped.
Right.
So I think if they introduced it, then space planes would have to be really scrutinized because they're going to be majorly affected by it because they spend all their time in the atmosphere.
And I should point out, when we were talking about that, the game was in 0.23, I believe.
Yeah, that was really early on.
And so that may not even be true anymore.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, we were led to believe that any part you added, even if it was a aeronautic or an aerodynamic part, like a nose cone, added drag, whereas you would think that a nose cone would reduce it. They may have changed that.
Yeah, so if they were to change things like that to make the parts that already exist better functioning.
You know what would be a good way to find out? Kerbal Engineer. Because it'll tell you the drag on your craft as you're building it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think if they make the game just staggeringly difficult, then I'm kind of against it. But if they were to make it to where certain parts actually had purpose and made sense, like on a rocket, I don't put any fins or wings or anything. I don't, because it doesn't really mean much. I'm going straight up to a certain point, and then I'm tilting this way for a certain point, and they don't really make a whole lot of difference to me. But if there was drag, then those things, they're going to cut, through the air. So I'm going to need it, to direct it a lot better and, reduce. Yeah. So I think, I don't know. It's one of those things I would have to try it to see if I would be like, I'm willing to tolerate this, increased amount of realism and still play the game.
Well, if the game gets to the point where you've got to have a physics degree or a pilot's license to play it, then that's to the detriment. Again, there is a sweet spot. And they can, it doesn't have to be exactly where it is right now. I mean, because as far as I'm concerned, they've hit the sweet spot, but I could see they could lean it more towards simulation, or they could lean it more toward games play. And I could see that adding to or detracting from the game. I don't know. Have you ever played Microsoft Flight Simulator?
No.
I know people that have sat down, messed around with it, could never get the plane off the runway, and gave up. Never touched it again.
I would too. I mean, unless there are people that are, there's like first-person shooter fanatics and stuff. Yeah. There are people that are huge into simulation games, and they're like, that is a challenge to them. For other people, they're not getting their fun returns for the time that they're spending. I would
hate for Kerbal. I would hate for it to become a game that people sit down and, piddle with for 5 minutes and go, well, I'm done with that.
Yeah, I don't want it to become so harsh.
Yeah.
In the beginning to where like there's so many variables here.
Only the hardcore may enter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, that last letter was from North Star, and I don't know. I hope we answered your question.
Yeah.
So anyway, what's our next letter?
Amy K. in England. Hi, Biff and Nos. Just finished listening to episode 19. Great as ever, and of course, have to get involved in the But I Digress discussion. Personally, I love Digress. It is always sci-fi space related, and considering the podcast is for Kerbal, those genres are extremely likely going to be popular with the majority of people who play the game and listen to the podcast. I love getting other thoughts and views on movies I've seen, or in the case of Europa Report, discovering ones I haven't seen.
Europa Report.
And the same can be said of games. Take care and long live Digress.
It tickles me that, you and you were the one that wanted to talk about Europa Report.
I kept badgering you about it. It's like, have you watched it yet? No,
and when I watched it, you remember what I said was I said I kind of had a built-in bias against it because I was tired of the found footage genre.
Yeah.
I am very firmly in the minority here because when we talk about But I Digress, over and over what we hear is, if it hadn't been for But I Digress, I wouldn't have seen Europa Report. And I loved Europa Report. So anyway, it's like, wow.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you downplayed it enough that they, because I
lowered the expectations.
I've had a lot of people that are like, this movie's awful, and it's been downplayed so much whenever I see it. It's like, oh, that's not bad at all. I kind of like it. So.
Well,
we just need to talk mad crap on all these movies, and then people will see them like, what are those guys thinking? These are awesome.
You know what though? Downplaying expectations only works so far.
Yeah.
Because when Star Trek V came out, I mean, everybody I knew.
Here he goes on Star Trek.
Here he goes on Star Trek. Well, I am wearing this ratty Star Trek shirt. Everybody I know.
I could smell it.
Everybody I knew at the time was telling me, this movie is terrible. And I mean, they were like acting out scenes and they were telling me all of the inconsistencies and on and on and on. And I was, of course, I was thinking, it can't be that bad. It cannot possibly be that bad. And I went to see it and I thought, well, it's not great, but it's not as bad as they say.
Yeah.
Then when I saw it the next time with the mindset of it's not as bad as they say, it was like, this is worse than I remember.
Okay, those guys are right.
And, of course, now I'm acting out scenes and pointing out inconsistencies.
Yeah,
so I kind of came full circle on that one. Let's see. Do I have it or do you?
You.
Okay. This is from Gamerholic. Hi, Biff and Nos, or hello, Biff and Nos. As always, thanks for the great show. Last week, I was crying on...
What did you do to him?
I know.
Why'd you make him cry?
I made him cry. Last week, I was crying on my wife's shoulder saying, no Kerbal Podcast this week.
Oh.
And then there's a frowny face emoticon.
We're sorry.
But now you're back, and I'm full of joy. I really missed you guys. The funny thing is, I missed him, too. In a weird way, I missed him. Even though this is his first
he's out
letter.
There, somewhere.
Yeah. I could sense it. It was a psychic connection. I'm not going any further with that one.
That's where it stops.
I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it at that. I would like to vote yes to But I Digress. You guys have introduced me to great titles. In fact, you were the first to tell me the sad news about Robin Williams, which is ironic because you were the first to tell me about Robin Williams.
Yeah.
So, I don't know which of you decided to use some phrases from Dragon Ball Z and SpongeBob. Nos.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Like, it's over 9,000 and chocolate. Do you want to do chocolate?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Chocolate. Okay. But that moment made me laugh out loud. Yeah, Nos gets all the credit. He's the one that came up with both of those.
I'm the one that spent way too much time on the internet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Usually the little gimmicky things that get tossed in, a lot of times those are Nos. Nos is the one who gave us Europa Report and Rollies and over 9,000.
I am trying as hard as I can to steer this away from Kerbal.
Yeah,
I was like, I want to talk about what I'm good at. Stupid internet videos and movies on Netflix.
See, I'm normal and you're anti-normal.
See,
That's the actual definition.
I just got to play to my strengths.
There we go. Okay, now I get credit for the next one, though. I got this huge smile on my face when you guys talked about Homeworld, the RTS I love most. That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the one. I brought that in. So I actually
I read the story.
You did?
Yeah, but you're the one who printed it out, so.
Oh, you read the story.
Yeah,
okay,
I read the
I
story.
thought you meant like you went on and read like more about it.
That counts,
Okay.
right?
You know, sometimes I misunderstand what you say. Because when we were reading the email a couple of episodes back that was talking about, you guys need to spend more time on Kerbal, you said, this is our first podcast. And you can hear me in the episode go, what? And because when you said that, I was like, but this is like episode 18.
Yeah, I guess that's funny whenever you say this is our first podcast.
Yeah.
That could mean this is our first
episode,
or it's our first podcast.
Dingbat me, that's how I took it. Continuing with Gamerholic, and he's still talking about Homeworld. I'm eagerly awaiting for the remastered edition, me too, and the new Homeworld Shipbreakers, which is supposed to be a prequel. Cool. I agree with that. Okay, if Squad is listening to the show, I have an idea that might be nice for the game. When we look around in the cockpits and crew habitation module, there's always a cabin/drawer/box that says snacks. Wouldn't it be nice if Kerbals needed snacks to be in good shape? Now, I'm not talking about that they would eventually die of starvation like in The Sims. Instead, they would get disoriented, unfocused, and mad. If the stock gets empty, Kerbals become useless, refusing to maneuver the craft, won't do EVA, won't take science readings, etc. Wouldn't it be nice if we could send snack rations to Kerbals doing mission on a planet? I would love it. It'd be like Scooby Snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another day, a Kerbeliever. That is from Gamerholic. And Squad, he wants snacks.
I don't know. It depends on if they added weight. Because otherwise,
added drag.
Sorry guys, you're gonna get stupid up there.
How much does that Snickers bar weigh?
Yeah, so that's not regulation.
Well, you can take a Snickers, but not the chunky.
Yeah. From Slubman in France. I have been a listener since the first episode, as the podcast started the week after I tried the game for the second time. I wanted to shout out my support for the But I Digress segment. Thanks to it, I discovered films I probably would have missed, like Europa Report. Perhaps in the future there should be a section with anything not Kerbal related, like space news and not only films.
I need to make it. I sound like I'm ripping on Europa Report. I actually enjoyed it. I think it's funny that everybody's mentioning Europa Report.
While KSP and related items are a sufficient universe to make an entire podcast, having some more broad stuff to talk about adds a nice touch. Finally, I would like to talk about a mod that changes the meaning of time in the game. The mod is named Kerbal Construction Time, or KCT. Building a rocket now takes time. So does repurposing the launch pad after a launch. Because of that, one tends to really plan missions ahead in advance. Also, research now takes a long time, which once again adds more of a challenge. Finally, this mod puts more of an emphasis on part reuse, as the more often a part is used in design, the less time it takes to add design build time. Also, recovered parts can be reused, and refurbishing a part takes less time than creating a new one. Best regards, and keep up the good work.
Given your schedule, if you use that mod, you wouldn't be able to do anything in the game.
Actually, right before I came and recorded the podcast.
I'm saying if you had a real-time mod.
Yeah, no, I'd set up the ship to be built, and then it would maybe be ready in time for me to cram it all in the last little bit.
I would like depart for the mun and then go to work.
Yeah.
And come back later that day.
All right, build the ship, guys. Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm halfway there. Okay, this is a news story, and this is from MetroTVNews.com, and I should throw in here, this story was translated by Google, and it did not make a whole heck of a lot of sense. I mean, I knew what the story was, but if I tried to read it the way Google translated it, I would probably, I think people would be begging me to talk about Europa Report again.
Yeah.
So anyway, I rewrote this story. This is not how it appears on the website, but I rewrote the story because you do not want to hear me read how Google translated it.
Yeah.
From metronews.com. If you threw Kerbal Space Program, Minecraft, and Space Engineers into a blender, the resulting game would be very similar to Autocraft. Autocraft is being developed by Alien Trap Games, and like KSP, requires players to create ships and machines to complete different objectives. Also, like Kerbal, as players level up, more parts are unlocked, allowing for increasingly complex vehicles. But, unlike KSP, the game's interface is similar to Minecraft, and the physics are closer to Space Engineers. Autocraft is available through Steam Early Access. You can go to the website, which, by the way, has a video. You can kind of see it in action. It's autocraftgame.com. Okay, we're on to our tweets now?
Yeah.
Okay.
First, from Jorge R., I vote yes digress.
Hashtag yes yeah. You know, we were joking about hashtag.
You know what? I actually realized what hashtags are actually good for.
What?
You click on it and it shows everyone that used it. So if everyone would have used it, like yes and no digress, then like you click on it and they're all right
and it
there.
Would give you the tally.
Yeah, so I was like, I didn't know what they were good for. I just thought they were silly. And then I was like, oh, okay, they actually they serve a purpose.
See, you learned something. Well, there was some of the hashtags. I mean, it was like, yes, but make it short, or
yeah,
like,
somebody making silly ones and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's see. DK. Okay, so you had a tweet. The next tweet, I kind of laughed at this one. Username Jebediah Kerman at Jeb's Junkyard. Keep digress. Hashtag yes digress.
Alex M says, for show longevity, yes digress. For neat space movies, yes digress. For news and updates to the show, yes digress, yes digress.
So what is that, 4 votes for you? No. Okay, from Orbiter, and it's there's an 8 in the middle of that. Maybe shorten the digress section and perhaps add achievement section where you read others' achievements.
Yeah, anytime people want to write in like stories of things that they've done, we've read them before, and we always like getting them in. Yeah. So if you have a really interesting story, something wacky happening,
or if you want to tweet it, we love to retweet those, especially if you like stick a picture in there.
Yeah. I vote for keeping the digressions, but make sure they're rocket and/or space-based. From Skyzar.
Hail Skyzar. Remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, Jacob O. Maybe a little shorter. I missed the space and science news. Could we integrate that into digress?
I really like the digress segments, but they have gotten a tad long. Maybe just shorter by a few minutes. That's from Kerbal News.
Yeah. By the way, if you have not subscribed to the Kerbal News Twitter feed,
yeah, go ahead and follow them.
Yeah, definitely follow them. It's a good source for Kerbal News. Okay. This is from DK. My vote, for whatever it's worth, is that digress is fine, but I think it should stay space or game related.
Well, it's worth a lot, DK.
Yes, it is.
Well, it's worth 1 vote, but it's worth a lot to us. The 1 vote means a lot.
Yes.
But it's not worth more than anyone else's vote because we got to stay.
Well, now the other one, there was 4 votes.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's not worth as much as the Alex M where he did 4 votes.
Well, it feels like it's worth a lot.
That's true.
I vote yes digress, but a shorter one that only covers a major topic of that week. From Anonymous Starfish.
And then from Renz L, I vote hashtag yes digress. Not everything in life needs to be strictly on topic. Well, we asked for your opinions, and we got quite a bit. And overwhelmingly, this is what we got. Overwhelmingly, people want us to keep But I Digress.
Yeah.
But
with some minor adjustments.
With some adjustments. Just about everybody said we want it to be shorter. Make sure that it's a topic that we're interested in. And the other thing that we heard consistently was put it at the end so that for people who don't want to hear it, they can just stop
Yeah.
and not go on. So what we've decided to do, and let us know if this works for you. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of But I Digress, and we're going to replace it with a segment. And it's only different in name only.
Yeah.
But we are creating a new segment, and it's at the very end of the program. It's called After the Credits. We will do a Kerbal podcast, start to finish. And at the very end, when we do our theme music or our music and we tail out and we say happy Kerbaling, at that point, if you are not interested in what would typically be But I Digress,
there's nothing left for you.
turn it off.
Yeah.
At that point, you will have heard all Kerbal. You will have heard Dark Mushroom and DK, and you will have heard the Shea Challenge, and you will have heard it all. If you are interested, however, continue to listen past Happy Kerbaling, and that's when we'll get into the new segment, which we call After the Credits. And today, and we're going to try and keep it to about 5 minutes. Maybe a little loose on that, but we're going to shoot for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But anyway, today, after the credits, since we've gotten a lot of requests to talk about this, we're going to talk about science fiction books, books that we enjoy, and we're going to give out some recommendations. And yes, we're going to talk about the Mars trilogy. So anyway, continuing on.
Okay, we're going to hand it over to DK, and when we come back, we'll have the Shea Challenge.
There really are quite a few mods that have features that I think should be in the stock game. So you know what? Let's do another one. RCS Build Aid is another fantastic informational mod that is particularly helpful for designing landing craft, space planes, or any other vehicle which might be docking or otherwise using RCS. The mod displays the thrust and torque forces caused by both your engines and your RCS. Essentially, it helps you perfectly balance where your RCS thrusters are going to be, and also help balance your engines for asymmetric designs, which, if you've ever tried to do without this mod, is hard. You've got a delta V readout for your RCS, a dry center of mass marker, which is your center of mass without fuel, and you get an average center of mass marker, which I find particularly helpful for spaceplanes. Setting up RCS so that you don't have any torque on your craft is a little more complicated than it might seem, and RCS Build Aid makes it really very easy. I think it's a must-have.
That was DK from the Twitch TV channel Declarations. Thanks, DK.
Actually, there's more. He is also now on the Twitch TV channel KSP TV.
Oh, okay. He's on there now.
Yeah, he's
Nice.
got 2 channels now. And the KSP TV is every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So check it out. It's always fun to watch him play.
Yeah.
The thing that I really enjoy, he's got his own soundtrack going. And so, you know how sometimes you kind of feel like the only person that has your musical taste, and then you hear somebody else? I guess for you, it would be like if somebody was doing a Twitch stream and they had Diarrhea Planet blasting all the way through.
Yeah.
When I was watching him, he had music from The Dark Knight Rises was playing, and I heard Gladiator, and I can't remember, there were several, but it was all these film scores.
Nice.
And it was like he had them on repeat or random or something, and it was just, at first I was thinking, boy, that in-game music sure sounds familiar, and then I went, hey, that's Dark Knight Rises.
Those are always the best thing. Best things to be playing whenever, I'll have a board game night or we'll be playing like RPGs and stuff, and we'll have that. That's really good background music, because anything else, you get caught up in vocals and stuff, and it's detracting.
So we're moving on to the Shea Challenge.
Yep, time for the Shea Challenge.
The Shea Challenges.
Challenges.
Plural.
I have more than 2 challenges this week. Oh, man, we're really branching out. After being inspired by my physics teacher, I decided to try and travel at light speed. In the game, the 010 monopropellant engine does not add mass to the craft you're adding it to. What I have tried to do is add enough to a probe core to reach the required speed of 299 million meters per second.
Good Lord.
You may use infinite fuel and sandbox mode to do this challenge. The second challenge is for the explorers. Orbiting a certain moon of a certain planet is an asteroid with an Easter egg on it. I want you to find it and tweet the screenshot to @Kerbalcast. The final challenge is another exploration challenge. Somewhere on a Mars-like planet is the camera of a Curiosity rover. Again, tweet the screenshot to @Kerbalcast.
He's got 3 challenges.
Yeah. For both the second and third challenge, you must be in career mode. And the screenshots have the sample you collect from both challenges. Oh, and don't forget the snacks.
Okay, well, that's your Shea Challenge for the week. And, of course, that wraps it up for episode 20 of Kerbalcast. Don't panic. We want to throw out some thanks, first of all, as always, to our listeners and our contributors, DK. Don't forget Twitch TV Declarations, and also Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, KSP TV. Shea, thanks for the challenges, and also thanks to everyone who wrote in.
We also want to thank the KSP and Kerbal Academy subreddit moderators. They put a link of us on the front pages. Yeah. So we want to give them a thank you for that.
As I say, they plug us, we plug them.
Yeah, we also want to thank Squad. Thank you for the game.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really like it.
Yes, we do. Enough to make a podcast out of it.
And all the music you heard is from Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
And don't forget, as always, we want to hear from you. It's kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. You can also get to us on Twitter. It's at Kerbalcast. You can download episodes directly from kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And I would also say to people who are posting reviews of us on iTunes, thank you so much. It's always nice to have people comment on there as well. Okay, so we're done now with Kerbalcast episode 20, Don't Panic. If you are interested, stick around for after the credits. We're going to talk about science fiction books. Until next time, I am your lunar module pilot, Biff Aldrin, and our command module pilot, CMP
Nostromo. Happy Kerbaling.
Thanks for sticking around. It's time for After the Credits.
Yes, it is, or if you prefer, it's But I Digress, renamed, or as Nos calls it, Kerbal After Dark.
Welcome to Kerbal After Dark.
We need 60s lounge music.
All right, so what's our topic for our first Kerbal After Credits?
We've gotten several requests to talk about some books. The Mars Trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. Mm-hmm. We've also gotten a couple of requests to talk about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And what I thought would be kind of cool is I have a news story that I want to read about the Mars Trilogy. And then just quickly, I want us to, you and I both enjoy reading, and we both have some kind of favorites. So I want to go ahead. Let me start out with this. This is from Blaster.com. One of the most acclaimed science fiction sagas of the last 25 years is moving from page to screen. The Wrap reports that Spike TV has signed a development deal for the Mars Trilogy, a drama series adapted from the Kim Stanley Robinson books, Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars. The series is considered a modern science fiction classic and garnered a combined 2 Hugo Awards, 2 Locus Awards, a Nebula Award, and a British Science Fiction Association Award. And Robinson will serve as a consultant on the project. So, cool. I said we had an announcement about the Mars Trilogy, and that's the announcement.
There you go.
So, I would also say, if you like the Mars Trilogy, here's 2 books I would recommend. Ben Bova wrote Mars and Return to Mars. Both very good books. I want to read the Mars Trilogy. That's on my list.
Yeah.
Recommendations.
I'm going to say most of the stuff that I normally read is like the crappy romance novels of sci-fi. A lot of the sci-fi books I've read have been the Warhammer 40,000 novels.
Right.
And, I mean, it's like atrocious. It's like spaceships covered in skulls. It's like big space opera kind of stuff.
You know what? If you like it,
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. So those are fun. I could digress about a couple different ones, but or I guess Kerbal After Credits about a couple different ones. But the other
After Dark,
the other ones that I recommend is I Let You Borrow the Faded Sun trilogy by C.J. Sherrill,
which is also in my queue.
Yeah, it is it's a very slow moving set of books.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I really liked them. By the time I was like, it just kind of trudges.
Right.
But I really like it. You have to chew your words a lot in that. I mean, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Right.
which we may just take off on its own thing later on, because
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot you can say about that.
Well, the deeper you get into Hitchhikers, I mean, it started as a radio drama.
Yeah.
Then it became a TV show. Then it became a series of books.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a movie. I mean, you know, this
Yeah.
thing has just, it's just gone all over. So, yeah, I love Hitchhikers. And I will say this, if you enjoy Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when I first came across Hitchhikers, at the time, I was blazing my way through everything Kurt Vonnegut had ever written. He is probably he is one of my favorite authors, maybe my all-time favorite author.
Yeah, he's high up on my list too.
But if you like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there is an early Vonnegut book. I believe it was the second one he wrote that I would recommend. It's called The Sirens of Titan. It's similar. It's different enough, but similar enough to Hitchhikers. I think anyone who hasn't read it would definitely enjoy it. It's very good. It's very science fiction-y, but it's got the exact same kind of, you know, very tongue-in-cheek, very bizarre sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I recommend Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah, I think most of the things that I've been reading are mainly sci-fi based. I don't have, like, you know,
Right.
too realistic. Most of the time it's like there's aliens, there's all sorts of silly stuff. So it's not something quite like on the Mars trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, how sci-fi does it get?
It's an attempt to be very realistic.
Okay. In
In that vein, there is somebody I discovered in the last year or so, and I love his books. Jack McDivitt. The Priscilla Hutchins novels are incredible. You know, they have a science fiction element to it. You know, there's aliens and things like that, but there is also very much an attempt to try and be realistic. There is definitely an attempt to deal with travel times. You know, there isn't a spaceship always close by when it's needed. There are politicians on Earth who don't see a need to fund space programs. You know, it's very much as it tries to be as realistic as it can within the confines of actually having, you know, other worlds and other aliens and that sort of thing. But anything by Jack McDivitt, especially the Priscilla Hutchins novels, I highly recommend. I really, really enjoy his stuff. I haven't read any of the Alex Benedict novels of his.
Yeah.
But if they're even half as good as the Priscilla Hutchins novels, I know I will enjoy them. So
there's a book that you let me borrow, Tau Zero.
yes, Tau Zero, Paul Anderson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gave me the elevator pitch for that one, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm sold. I'll
That one is it's considered to be, it's kind of a classic in the making, but it's imagine a ship. It has one drive that accelerates and one drive that decelerates, and the whole idea is that it's a colony ship, and they're trying to get as close to light speed as they can because they want to go to a neighboring system and colonize a planet. The problem is something happens and the deceleration drive gets disabled. And the only way to fix it would be for them to actually get out and go work on it, which, you know, when you're traveling close to light speed, you can't exactly get out of the ship.
Yeah.
So what happens is the ship just continues to accelerate, and they get closer and closer and closer to the speed of light. And, of course, you know, the trip that was going to take a few hundred years in Earth time, you know, now we're talking they're literally billions of years into the future, and the universe is beginning to dim. And this ship that was only meant to be a temporary home is now basically home for good.
Yeah.
Unless they can figure out some way to slow down.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can find a copy, because it is kind of difficult to find now, if you can find a copy of Tau Zero, I recommend it. So, okay. Well, anyway, so that's our after the credits.
Yeah.
We'll see you again next week.